Hi everybody, this is Stacy Hoffman-Farmer with Mountain Serenity Massage. Today I'm here with Elaine Grohman. Elaine is an intuitive healer and an educator. She's taken a spiritual journey herself in her life. She had a quiet moment in her life that changed everything. And she focuses on educating people and herself on how to establish and maintain a direct connection to our living earth, to the planet we live on, which is basically helping us stand on solid ground, so to speak. She works with the body, mind, and spirit and emotional connections that provide people with a great understanding of how we function within this earth, as well as how our emotions can affect us in our daily lives. Elaine, thank you so much for joining me today. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Stacy, for having me. I appreciate it.
Great. Let's go ahead and dive right in. So Elaine, you said on your webpage that you've gone through a transformational period in your life that led you into this work. How did you get into your intuitive healing work?
Well, actually, of course, everyone's lives and emotions that they go through help them to prepare for what they're doing. And in my young life, I had multiple losses, so many deaths of people in my family. Beginning with when I was 12 years old, one of our brothers died and our mother died 14 months later, very unexpectedly. So there was 8 surviving kids. And I was 12 and 13 years old at that time. So that, needless to say, that brought me in the beginning of my teenage years as a, not really standing on solid ground and wondering how am I going to navigate this world without my mom and all those, important connections that help you to feel stable. Mm-hmm. So, and throughout the rest of my life, I had the opportunity to recognize that we often make the mistake of labeling ourselves by the emotions that we experience. Mm-hmm. and we become that story, and that we were never meant to do that. We were meant to learn from the experiences we have and let the emotions that we have be literally what they are, energy and motion. So an emotion is energy in motion. We're meant to have it move through us. And most of the time, out of fear or not being aware, we hold on to that wounding. And then that can be crippling to us in more ways than one.
Oh, absolutely. I love the energy in motion. I hadn't really put it quite so eloquently before. I think that's a great way to describe it. I know a lot of...
It really is. And what we need to understand is that our emotions are how we as physical human beings with the spirit inhabiting our body. We need the body. The spirit needs the body in order to have this physical experience, but we navigate the world through our emotions. That is how we know whether is this good or bad, happy, sad. How are we in relation to anything that's happening to us? But our emotions have been relegated to something that is really not healthy. And when we don't know how to use our emotions in a healthy way, then they become the very fertile ground for disease processes to begin to flourish.
Well, when you were saying energy and motion in tandem with the disease process, as most of us know, a disease feels like something is stuck, right? You're holding something in your body that needs to be expressed. Usually disease is a way for your body to get your attention, so you're able to do that. So holding those emotions could certainly manifest a disease without even realizing it.
Well, and we know in Western medicine, they say all the time that the primary precursor to illness is stress. Well, stress is an emotional response to something. In fact, it's the unexamined emotional response. So stress is only meant to be a momentary thing. It's not meant to be a lifelong sustained thing. And when people are in chronic stress, their physiology is altered. So their endocrine system and their hormonal system goes into overdrive, and all of that chemical reaction then prevents the body from being at its optimal state, which is health. Mm-hmm. So what we want to learn how to do is to really recognize and work through our emotions as the guidance system that they're meant to be, so that we can then learn how to engage our mind. So we feel what we feel, and then if we know how to step away from that emotion and that reaction and ask ourselves a very pivotal question: what did I learn?
That's a great question.
Yeah. Instead of what happened to me, which is what most people use as their flag that they carry. Well, this is me. I'm the wounded person. Well, yes, but what did you learn? So that wound stops being infected all the time.
Oh, that's a great message. That mentality in this world of carrying that wound flag around, that this is happening to me, not something that you accidentally created maybe by holding on to those emotions. So I love that. What are you learning from this? What did that disease tell you?
And that was, back when my brother and my mother died, it was the late 60s. Mm-hmm. And, at that time, it was a very tumultuous time in our society. In fact, the morning of my brother's funeral, Bobby Kennedy was assassinated.
Wow.
So, and I, as a child, watched that on television, and so that was scary.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized that I had, in order to deal with the emotions and the intensity of the emotions, I realized that this didn't happen to me. I experienced the event. The death happened to my mother. But the reaction, and then therefore what I had to learn how to do in order to live further, was a choice that I had to make. So, I thankfully had a very wise mother. She taught us a great deal in the very short time that I had her in my life. And that is what, in the years that I've been doing work as an energy healer and as an intuitive, the vast majority of the illness that we have, and I would dare to say even the accidents that we see in this world, are because of someone's unexamined emotions.
Wow.
Anger, someone's willingness to cause harm to another is their unexamined anger. Someone is willing to perpetuate robbery. It's what do they believe that they're going to get that is going to temporarily fill them, but will never actually fill them.
Oh, wow.
So people will continue to seek out something instead of saying, yes, indeed, something happened to me in a moment in time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And what did I learn about the capability that I have as a result of that? And when we learn how to start there, then we will use those strengths that we have gained from those experiences of energy and motion, use our mind, and come up with creative, helpful solutions to the challenges we see all around us.
So it's really taking that control back. Instead of thinking it's some outside force that's occurring, that's causing things in your life to happen, it's having your clients turn around and say, what is going on inside of me that's creating this experience?
Right.
I had never really thought of it that way.
And really, actually, without making people feel like they're a victim yet again. Because you don't want someone to say, well, you did something wrong, so you have cancer. You did something wrong because you had this. But let's say, for instance, I was speaking with somebody today. Think about somebody who has had the experience of being abused. Physically, emotionally, mentally abused. Whoever is the abuser is not using their mind appropriately. Mm-hmm. And the one who is being abused often has to kind of step away from the experience in their mind to be able to cope. Mm-hmm. So what happens over a long period of time is someone who doesn't use their mind is more likely to lose their mind.
That's interesting.
Yes. Okay. Think of something that is a very common phrase, like someone who's a type A personality. Okay. Many people have heard type A personality.
Absolutely.
Right. So a type A personality, if you look at the emotion that drives them, it's fear. Not enough money, not enough time, not enough prestige, not enough whatever. Mm-hmm. They're always trying to fill this insatiable need that at the underlayment of it is fear. Well, what happens is then those individuals have a tendency to have difficulty with interpersonal relationships. They shut down the energy of their heart chakra and they die of heart attacks. It's not a coincidence.
Wow.
It is a known trajectory. People that have diabetes. Mm-hmm. The pancreas has the physiological purpose of breaking down complex carbohydrates. sugars.
Mhm.
Okay. But if we would look from an emotional perspective, how well do people that have diabetes allow sweetness into their life? Not sugar, but sweetness. Every organ, every part of our body has a physiological, spiritual, and emotional construct.
So it really draws that line between that mind, body, spirit connection. The body is just one piece of all of that.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, that's okay. So you're mentioning chakras as well, which I'm very involved in the chakra system when I work on people's bodies through massage. So feeling through that energy and where it may be stuck. And I had not really drawn that correlation between a space in the body where the pancreas would be, where there's some stuck energy, and then the diabetes. That is quite a profound way of manifesting something that's going on.
Well, and certainly people don't do it intentionally. They do it unwittingly. Mm-hmm. But the beautiful thing about the human body, it has the capacity to heal. And we know that it has the capacity to regenerate.
Yes.
So for instance, you could have a part of your liver excised and you will grow another liver. Mm-hmm. So how is it if then our body from the moment of our conception is both growing cells and protecting us? So our body has an innate intellect that we haven't even begun to understand yet. So when we get out of the way of literally, first of all, let me back up and say so many people have unfortunately been taught, often through religion, mm-hmm. that we're not worthy.
Yes.
Okay.
That carries through many different religions as well.
Right. Religion and socioeconomic situations, ethnicities. There's so many things that have maligned who we are as human beings and what this beautiful planet is providing for us.
Yeah.
So when we learn to look beyond that very patriarchal form of control,
definitely
when we can forgive it, mm-hmm. most importantly,
forgiveness, yes.
Forgive it and release it from us with an understanding that too was a part of the emotional psychology of the collective of humanity, then we can have a quicker opportunity to heal collectively.
Forgiveness seems to be such a key, forgiving both ourselves and others, being able to forgive that we do not understand some of the things that are happening within us and around us.
Right.
Be able to move through that. That's a really interesting thought, especially the socioeconomic class structure that you're talking about. I know a lot of people out there maybe are feeling that pressure from what's around them, that they have to believe a certain way or think a certain thing. I know we've seen as disease manifests in the body, which is why I was so interested in your work, is that people seem to think in this day and age that the body is separate. And we're moving back into that space where it is really all connected. It's not just treating the body. You have to treat the mind and the emotions and the spirit as well.
Well, the spirit is what inhabits the body.
Mm-hmm.
So the body is the temple for the spirit to move through time and space. And this physical structure is a very minute part of who we actually are.
Mm-hmm.
And when we understand in a more global way, in a more holistic way, that we're here first and foremost to be happy. Now that doesn't mean we're meant to be giddy. It means that we're meant to be content with what is happening, mm-hmm. in the midst of a challenge, especially in the midst of a challenge. And then we're meant to recognize that we are love. Love is not an emotion. Love is a power. Love is a force, a powerful force that animates everything we see. And then from that, when we're happy and we recognize that we are love, then we would also recognize that everyone else is too. And therefore, we would not try to take literally from ourselves. When we try to take from someone else, we're taking from ourselves. And we have to learn how to take appropriate action. So when you're happy and you recognize that you're a love, you will naturally take action.
That's such a profound thought. I mean, love is such a force in this world. And I think people don't recognize it for what it really is. We're so insulated thinking only about what's going on in our own particular space with our families or friends and in our internal space, that we forget that we're connected to everyone else in the world as well. Everyone is experiencing these things and going through life this way.
Right.
So
And we have to understand that the emotion that we call love, in our very contrived notion of it, is really not very loving.
It's really not. It's kind of selfish. It feels a little selfish sometimes.
Well, because it's not really love. It is a desire to have someone prove we're worthy. And the reality is we already are loved, so we don't have to prove anything. But when we understand that we are loved, then we would ever ask anyone to diminish themselves for us.
What a profound thought that is, not to diminish yourself for anyone else.
Right.
Them to diminish themselves for you.
Right. Then there's equality.
And we are all meant to be equal in this world. I know people are struggling with that everywhere. You're right. The conditioning that we have, I think, really through the mind. It very much seems like it's mind conditioning, that we accept what's happening to us as an outside force.
Now, I would say differently. It's through the brain, not the mind.
The brain, okay. Just a very nice distinction.
The brain has the capacity to remember what we've been taught. The mind has the capacity to imagine anything. So the mind is how we view the world. The mind is in our auric field. Our brain is in our head. That is the computing device that tells our body what to do.
Okay.
And it also stores memories. But our mind is that part of us that taps into the unknown, that taps into possibilities that have yet been brought to fruition. So there's so much more that the mind actually is.
I like that distinction. Again, I hadn't really thought about it in such a way that it really does make a distinction for me. The brain is a piece of the body that's a little more functional, more like a tool. Whereas the mind is outside the body in the auric field. I think that's beautiful. Our energy, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are watching as well that are experiencing this energy shift that we're going through right now in the world. We're having that consciousness shift back into who we really are, that mind, body, spirit. And feeling like sometimes maybe there is that struggle that I just described myself, between the brain and the mind, and how you're experiencing the world through that.
Well, it's a very important shift that all Indigenous elders understood this for millennium, that this was a very important time. This time we're in right now, we're at the end, we're in a time of chaos.
Very much so.
But that's not bad, because chaos means what we're seeing is not working. So, we see leadership that doesn't know how to lead. We see healing, or we see medical places that really don't understand healing. We find institutions of learning that don't know how to teach. We have so many things. We have agriculture that has no understanding of the importance of nutrients. So all of these things that are failing have to fail, and to be in this chaotic state for us to say, clearly this is not sustainable. We have to use our imagination. We have to go back to what is pure and clean and healthy and wholesome. But people are going to be struggling to hold on to what they know.
Yeah.
The hardest thing for a human to do is change. But the only thing that we're here to do is change.
That's a really great thought as well, that we resist change on such a fundamental level. And at the same time, everything is changing all the time. I mean, really, when you think about it, the only thing that's constant in the whole world is that it's changing all the time, second to second, moment to moment.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, I mean, moving through that, into the body, when you're holding on to things that are changing around you so rapidly, so things that are happening in the world or in your own energy or within your family group or your friend group, and you're trying not to let that happen, sometimes that can also manifest physically.
You can't not let things happen. Things happen.
I guess they will, no matter how you react to them.
People will be sick. People will die. People will come. People will go. Relationships will change. That is how it is meant to be. But our potential is to recognize, what do I contribute to the whole? That is fundamentally what we're responsible for. What do I contribute to the whole? What do I give to the whole to make all of this better for future generations, for the generations that are here? How do we help us all understand that the most precious thing we will ever have is this life? And
that's a great message.
we don't want to squander it.
Absolutely not. People feel so disconnected in this life. And the message of love being that pure energy again, that's not something that's just a simple emotion that we're dealing with in other ways, the anger, the fear, just joy or something. That
Right.
love is truly the emotional force in this whole world, and that we're all connected by it. I just love that message. That's such a profound thing to think about, that we are not alone ever in this whole world.
Never. Yeah. And we have to remember that love is just not an emotion. Love is what holds every atom in place. Love is what is the intelligence that our body understands and drives our body, that allows things to happen that we don't even comprehend. Millions of things that are happening simultaneously. Love is this beautiful force that somehow makes this air that's here suddenly become very precious to us when it becomes our breath. Or when what we're eating becomes the nutrients that our cells need. That is love. It's a giving. It's a giving. It's a giving. And then it's a result when it's used properly.
Oh, what an amazing thought that is. Just thinking of it as such an energy like that, that it's everything. Everything that's around us, that we breathe, that we eat, that we speak, that we think, that it's all love. I mean, just imagine if you shift away from that fear aspect, as you were saying before, the type A, that's driven so much by fear. I mean, if you're thinking about the actions that you take in response to fear of lack, not having your security, fear of not having money, fear of not having your health, and you shift that into loving what's already around you instead of being afraid of what might happen.
Right. And the thing that's important for people to understand is that fear is not the opposite of love. Fear is the denial of love.
That's a pretty profound thought as well, denying what's already there.
Yeah, it is. It's like closing your eyes and saying the room is dark. Well, yeah, the room is dark because your eyes are closed.
Absolutely. If you don't see it, the room is dark.
Yep. Yep. So there's a lot that people need to really begin to understand to help to unfold themselves literally from all the misconceptions that people have been taught over the millennium, and get back to the wholeness of what it means to be a human being. And that's where, when we begin to understand that this beautiful earth is constantly giving to us everything we will ever need. And it is up to us to use these resources that always are at our disposal with integrity, with love, with respect, and with making sure that everyone has the opportunity to have as beautiful of an experience, no matter where they live, no matter how they choose to live.
Wow, that's a great thought. Again, bringing it back to the wholeness of who we are and how we interact as a culture. And I like that that's a piece of your work, rounding everything into the earth. We are all here together, experiencing this life, living on this planet. And when you're denying that you're part of that whole, negative things can happen, or, well, maybe not negative things, but things you perceive as negative, by not realizing that you're part of the whole.
Right, right. So, a negative emotion, and I often help to try to clarify for people when someone says, well, so-and-so is negative. No, energy is neutral. But energy can have a low frequency, which is then perceived as something negative, because people believe when they're in a low energy that there is lack. But when you're in a higher energy, you see the panacea of what is available. So there is no such thing as negativity in terms of a person, but there is negative actions taken by a person.
Negative actions that can result in some unintentional consequences.
Or some intentional consequences.
Some intentional, yes. But, manifesting something like a disease that was unexpected, or an illness, all of a sudden you're sick and you have no idea why. Nobody else is sick, just you. So manifesting those unintentional consequences.
Right.
I like thinking of emotions as neutral. I think that's really great. We've seen a lot of press, I guess, in the culture around us, where being angry or being fearful or being sad is perceived as a negative thing, that we shouldn't feel these things.
Well, I didn't say that emotions are neutral. I said energy is neutral.
Energy, okay.
Right. And emotions have a very important reason. So fear is a very important emotion, because back in the times of our ancestors, it put us on high alert. There could be something that would be deadly around us. And it was intended to flood your body with emotion so you would have quick reaction, fight or flight. But we're not meant to stay in that problem, in that high state of alert. And so many people are caused now to stay in that high state of alert. We're meant to have the whole cycle of hormonal experiences, so we know when to wake up, we know when to go to sleep, we know when to digest, we know when to do all of this. Chemicals are information for our body. But when we monkey around with them because of what's happened, then it forgets what is a normal cycle.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. So the rhythms of the body really do mimic the planet we're living on. I mean,
of course.
Yeah. So thinking about not being connected to this earth, which is what you do in your work, and then experiencing, problem sleeping. I know a lot of people out there have that high level of stress all the time. So there's the insomnia that goes with it. There's the overeating when your body is physically not hungry. That's also kind of a manifestation of disease, really. When you're not feeling at your best and you're hanging on to things in your body because you're stressed out all the time, and then not sleeping on top of it. So
even going back further, it's an unexamined emotion that's precipitating that action. So if we start looking at what is this emotion that I'm not looking at, that I'm trying to hide or trying to medicate or trying to negate in some way, we always have to go back to, what am I feeling? What am I feeling? Honor that feeling and then learn from it.
That's a great message for everyone that's out there. I had another person say that in some cultures they say, I feel the emotion, and in this society we say I am. So I am angry, I am sad, and in other cultures it's I feel angry. So it's a temporary state.
Right.
And you're saying the same thing in just a very profound way. Don't hold on to it. Don't become that emotion.
Right.
It's not meant to stick around. It's meant to tell you what's going on so you can flow through it.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people are dealing with repressed fear, repressed anger. I see that quite a bit in my practice as well. Those emotions are not supposed to be expressed in our cultured society. We're not allowed to really feel those when we need to. I mean, anger is there to protect us. If you're angry, there's something going on that you feel threatened by.
Right.
So move those.
Well, we have to give ourselves permission to express our emotions appropriately, and then to examine why we felt the way we felt, with a more holistic and non-judgmental and also inclusive looking at, if someone made you angry, maybe they insulted you, maybe there was something that was made you feel angry. And so instead of retaliating, you might want to then turn to that person and say, perhaps you didn't understand the consequence of what you just did, but please let me share what it felt like from my side.
Can you imagine if we all were able to do that just all the time?
We could, if we chose to.
We could. It's a hard choice sometimes.
No, it's not. It's a choice is a choice. A choice is never hard or easy. A choice is a choice.
And then you deal with the consequences of that action. That's great.
Yeah.
So making sure to express yourself, the right way, instead of, as I was saying, being afraid of the consequences of that choice is pretty profound as well. Just really owning everything that's going on inside of you and being able to express it in the right way.
Right.
So you can get through it. What a profound shift that would be.
Well, let's start doing it.
I think so. Everybody should start doing that right now. It's so hard when you're feeling angry not to turn around and just yell at somebody instead of...
Well, I think that it's a learned skill. And one of the things that I want to do in, going forward in my life is to help people to understand that it's not as difficult as they believe. And I think that in boardrooms and in classrooms, they need this information. And there is very ancient tools actually called the medicine wheels that help us to look at who we actually are, how we have come about, and it's a beautiful guide, no matter what it is that we're going through, that can help us get back into focus with what's going on. So I've had the privilege of studying with some Native American elders and learned these ancient medicine wheels, and there's many, many medicine wheels. And they were put together over many, many thousands of years. And it was not created, it was observed. So they observed how things developed. They observed how things moved, how seasons changed, how time moved, how we grew. And then they chronicled that. And it's a very, very, very important tool for us to learn how to use, because it will always get you back to where you need to be.
Wow. That's the first time I've actually heard of those. That's really interesting.
Well, they're very ancient. And there were people that were called the Zero Chiefs that were actually hunted down and killed because they carried this sacred information about who we actually are as human beings.
Wow. And it was just put together over time, seeing how we were developing as a society?
Over thousands and thousands of years.
Wow. That'll definitely I'll be interested to research that more myself, just to see how that...
There's a book by a gentleman whose name is Hyemeo Storm. It's HyemeyOhsts, is his first name, Storm, Native American elder who's in his 80s now. He wrote, he was the first one to bring the medicine wheels out into the world in the early 70s. And the first book that he wrote is called Seven Arrows. The second book that speaks a great deal about the medicine wheels is called Lightning Bolt. They're not easy reads by any means. They're very deep. And they're about 450 pages long.
So lots of information.
Yes, but you have to understand, we have to get back to the reality of who we are. Because the mess that we have created in this world is common but not normal. So one of the things I say to people is, for instance, I was working with someone who had a chronic condition, and she said, well, this is my normal, or this is normal. And I said, no, this is common. It's not normal. There's a very big difference between common, which we have an expectation because it happens repeatedly, that we think that is normal. Anger is not normal. It's common, but it's not normal. Joy is normal. Happiness is normal.
Getting back to being healthy and being happy, that is where normal is. That should be the expectation.
Yes. We have to learn to normalize life again.
Absolutely. I think that's a great message, the difference between normal and common. I know the distinction is great when you say it that way, but when you think about it, when I was first thinking about that as you said that, it was like, wow, that's just a fundamental shift to hear someone say that and realize the difference between common and normal.
Right. So somebody, for instance, that is in an abusive relationship over and over and over again, that becomes common, but it is not normal.
Because it's not happy. It's not joyful. It's not where they should be.
It's not a natural thing for people to do, to be in relationships that cause distress, habitual distress. That is not a healthy place. For many people, it's common, but it is not a normal state for the human being to be in.
Oh, that is really profound as well. You've shared so many gems throughout this whole conversation that when you say it's so obvious to hear somebody say it. It just, aha, clicks in your head. But before, I never would have thought about that. So thinking about yourself as having reactions such as disease or pain or, anger or fear, where it's common, but it's not normal. It's not where you should be. What a fundamental shift in perception.
Right.
That you really shouldn't be there. Just because it's happening all the time, because it's common, doesn't make it the right place to be.
Exactly.
Oh, that's excellent. Well, I will certainly be looking up more of your information. That was
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure, and I'll be looking up the medicine wheels as well. Thank you so much for those.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I do travel to teach, so keep that in mind.
Oh, so Elaine might come out here. I'm in Denver, so Elaine may come out here.
I would love to come to Denver anytime. I'm in Michigan. I travel. I can get on a plane.
All right. Denver's beautiful. We'd love to have you.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
For people out there watching her, resonating with Elaine's work, her website is her name, elainegrohman.com. And she has all of her information about herself and her journey into how she became an intuitive healer and how she works through the energy systems and working people back into their root within this world that we live in to get them back to health, back to happiness, to handle situations of grief or stress or disease. I mean, if you're interested in Elaine's work, which I certainly am, you should check out her website. Elaine, thank you so much for speaking with us today. This is just so amazing. It's been eye-opening.
Thank you so much for the opportunity and reaching out to me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, check out Elaine's website, and I'm sure we will be talking to her again soon. Thanks.
Thank you.